Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on our very informative webinar on how to hire a professional property manager. My name is Scott Pastel. I'm the VP of Property Management here at Marshall Reddick Real Estate, and I'm joined by Jeremiah Shuyler, our Business Development Manager for Property Management as well. Jeremiah and myself work out of our Southern California, Orange County office. However, we have the nice opportunity to be working with clients all over the country, covering many different offices that we're located in, from California all the way to Florida. So our presentation today is going to be on what a professional property manager does, why you should be working with a professional property manager, all of the benefits, the cost savings, and how to basically get your portfolio of real estate running smoothly, effectively, lowering your liability, increasing your return as much as possible. Marshall Reddick Real Estate has been a property manager for many years. We've noticed over the years that we have a very different approach and style of property management. And we hope that through the webinar today that you guys pick up on a lot of tips that professional property managers do that you might not be able to see from a realtor or self-managing it. And we hope to have the opportunity to work with as many of you as possible on managing your rental properties and just giving you guys peace of mind, and allowing you to focus on the things that are important to you in your day-to-day life. So we are recording the presentation. We'll make sure that each of you get a copy of the recording afterwards as well. So for those of you that are not yet familiar with Marshall Reddick Real Estate, we have 3 different divisions. We are a real estate agency. We have our broker's licenses in California, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida. And I'll be showing you a little bit later where exactly what cities and geographic locations that we cover for property management and real estate as well. So we are a one-stop shop for residential real estate. That means that we work with people looking to buy a property. That could be a primary residence or investment property. We help people sell their properties as well too. And a mixture of our transactions on a monthly basis are working with people acquiring investment properties, and then some people who are selling, and some that are exchanging to buy more properties. But yeah, we cover all things residential real estate. So that could be single family homes, multi-units, duplexes, fourplexes, and small apartments as well. And then we are also a licensed NMLS private money lender. So we work with investors who are looking to lend their money safely for a secure return. We also work with borrowers who are looking for private financing, alternative financing, either for long-term buy and hold or short-term fix and flip. And then we also have an extensive resource team of CPAs, insurance agents, mortgage lenders, and pretty much anything that you would need in building a rental property portfolio. So like I said, we are a one-stop shop for residential real estate, and we believe in really simplifying the process of buying and selling real estate. We cater to individuals on a one-on-one basis through our team of real estate advisors who have the opportunity to have phone conversations, emails, video calls, all complimentary. We do not charge anything for our advising, consulting, and education. So our company has been around for a very long time. Marshall Reddick, the individual, Dr. Reddick, retired now, but started the company in 1979. And like I said, we have several different services that span out across many different states in the U.S., from California all the way to Florida. So just a little bit of background on myself real quick. Like I said, I'm one of the 2 speakers today. I started working for this company, Marshall Reddick, in 2005. I recently just celebrated my 15-year anniversary with the company. I love real estate. I've really, grabbed onto it, gravitated towards the idea of creating financial independence. I do own multiple rental properties. Bought my first rental property 12 years ago in 2008. I actually still own it. And actually this year I'm looking at the possibility of selling it and exchanging for more properties. And bought several properties since then, and have had the opportunity to have conversations and work with hundreds and hundreds of our clients over the years from brand new to experienced as well. And I skipped over, but I have my real estate license. I acquired that in 2010. And my background in college was business administration from Chapman University, a private school here in Orange County. My passion absolutely is in real estate, and property management is actually one of the things that I love the most about real estate. And I know some people go, that's interesting. Property management isn't always looked at as a glamorous part of owning rental properties. However, it is so essential. We consider it the make or break factor in owning rental properties. It is really the X factor. We really feel that we do an above average job on property management. And so it's something that we definitely hold very near and dear to us. We're very passionate about the experiences that we provide to our clients. So this map is actually a full coverage of the 16 different markets that we operate within. And we have a brick and mortar Marshall Reddick office in all of the California, Florida, and some of the Texas and Tennessee markets. We have a few locations that we refer our clients to a third-party realtor or property manager. Those locations are Phoenix, Boise, Indianapolis, Las Vegas, Memphis, and Dallas. I believe it's the other 12 markets, we do have a brick and mortar office. So we have a Marshall Reddick office in Newport Beach, California, Pasadena, California, also up in San Jose, California, as well as Cape Coral, Port Charlotte, Florida, Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and Clarksville. So yeah, about 2/3 of our markets, we have our own offices where we have a Marshall Reddick staff, and the rest of the offices, we work with a affiliate agent, real estate agent and property manager. And wanted to share with you guys some of our team photos. So the top left, that's our Newport Beach office, standing outside of our lovely sign there on MacArthur Boulevard next to John Wayne Airport. Going clockwise to the right in Florida, that's our office in Cape Coral, Florida. Cape Coral is in Southwest Florida on the west side of the Florida coast. It's an amazing, amazing investment market. We manage about 500 to 550 properties in our Cape Coral office. Now, down to the bottom right, that is a picture of our staff last year. That's myself and Ross Nelson, our CEO, in the middle. That's our San Antonio office. And you're looking at our staff members and our maintenance supervisors, our owner coordinators, tenant coordinators, some of our leasing agents, and realtors as well. And then down to the bottom left, that's a picture of our, not the full team, but that's Ross on the right, Malika next to Ross, then Christina in the middle, and then Josh Simmons on the left. That's our team in our Clarksville, Tennessee office. Missing from that photo is Taylor Mata, our owner coordinator. But yeah, you guys, I just wanted to share with you, we're really, really proud of, just the growth and expansion of our company. And it's really allowed us to scale and grow the properties that we manage. And combined across all of our offices that you see here, we manage about 1,300 properties total. And we really do practice what we preach. These are some really old pictures of me on the top left in front of one of my properties in Phoenix. And then on the top right, that's actually all the way back in 2009 when I visited one of my rental properties in Alabama. And then below that is a property that I also own in Mobile, Alabama as well. So I am not the only staff member, thankfully, that owns rental properties. We have a lot of our staff members who have had the abilities and just through the education, knowledge, and resources have been able to purchase rental properties. So we definitely practice what we preach. Many of us have benefited tremendously from our investment property purchases. And we walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So we're able to speak from a level of experience as rental property owners as well. I wanted to kind of set a precedence here of what the basic principle of investing our money into any asset class. What are the two things that we're trying to, what is it that exactly, we're trying to achieve? And what is it that we're trying to decrease? So obviously within making any investment, whether that's in stocks or mutual funds or annuities or real estate or insurance or whatever it is, businesses, whatever that we're investing in, we obviously want to achieve the highest return on investment possible. But there are two things that I have on the slide here that could really cut into that return. Obviously, one is risk. We're all trying to decrease our liability and our risk as much as possible. And with any investment, including real estate, there are inherent risks. And we need to know what those risks are in the very beginning. We got to figure out what those risks are. And then we need to learn how to decrease those risks as much as possible. The other, which really applies to real estate, is time. Real estate can be a passive investment. It could also be a full-time job, depending on how you have your property structured, depending on how involved you are on the day-to-day management of your properties, depending on what types of properties you purchase. It can be as passive as a stock investment, or it could be as involved as a 7-day job. Our goal is to mitigate that, right? As property managers, we're here to allow you to focus on the things that matter most to you, like your family, like your job, like your, passions, hobbies, and interests, and allowing you to scale a property portfolio, not just owning 1 or 2 properties and then stopping, but allowing you to get to the point over a 5-year, maybe 10-year period of owning somewhere between maybe 5 to 10 properties. That really can represent financial independence for, I think, the average investor. However, if it's not done correctly and if it's not structured right, it can suck up a lot of your time, which in my opinion decreases the return that you're receiving. So we want to avoid that. So now I have the pleasure of introducing to you Jeremiah Shuyler. Jeremiah works out of our Newport Beach office, and Jeremiah, who I think many of you probably talked to or heard from already, as he made some calls ahead of time, is your direct point of contact. Jeremiah is available to speak with you after the presentation, answering any questions that you have about properties that you either currently own or maybe properties that you're thinking about acquiring, how our property management is different, and the solutions that we can offer you. And Jeremiah, you've got some great stuff to go through, so I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Scott. As Scott mentioned, my name is Jeremiah Shuyler. I am the Business Development Manager here for the Property Management Division of Marshall Reddick Real Estate. I have a background in economics and residential construction and development, and I've got well over 10 years of leasing and sales experience. So let's see, how do we get this next slide? Okay, the first thing I'm going to cover is how does a property management make their money? How do they earn that fee? A lot of people I talk to think that we just collect rent, and it's so much more than that. What we do is we estimate your fix-up costs, and we help get your property fixed up quickly. Most of the time when we start a property management relationship, we're coming to a property that needs help getting rent ready. It might be some minor patch paint, it might be some plumbing, but it's going to be a little bit of work in order to get that property ready to attract the highest quality tenant at the best price possible. Which brings us to the next thing a property manager does is we run a rental market analysis, and that is the only way to determine how much your property will rent for. I'll go into that in more detail on the next slide. But after we've determined what your property rents for, it is our job to assign a dedicated leasing agent to advertise and show your property. Their job is to collect applications, pre-screen tenants, and give them private showings. And what they do is they procure applications, which brings us to the next thing a property manager does. We screen your applicants, and we put that in red because that's probably the most important thing to your asset's performance. Getting a good tenant in there who cares for your property and who's going to pay the rent on time. A lot of property management companies automate this process. We're still one of the few guys that do a lot of this manually. I'll talk to you about that also more in the next slide. But we're very, very proud of our screening process, and we've got an eviction rate of less than 1% to prove our success in that regard. After we've approved applicants and we have some prospects for you, we will get the approved applicant to sign a lease, and we will enforce that lease, and we will also collect the rent. And as we collect that rent, we will provide you monthly and year-end statements that our full-service corporate accounting staff will prepare for you. They will be detailed. They will cover all your revenue, expenses, and it'll do so with complete transparency. And we'll also conduct periodic inspections for your property. Again, we are investment managers, and what we do is we want to decrease the number of days that your property is ever vacant. That's our enemy. So we will hold a periodic inspection to assess the condition before a turnover so we can plan appropriately for that. So those are some broad strokes of what we do. Which brings us next to the typical life cycle of property management relationship. Whenever I meet a property owner, we start with an initial property evaluation. Like I mentioned before, we need to make a property rent ready. We need to make it ready to attract that next quality tenant who's going to pay the high market price that we desire for your rental. So we will actually walk the property with you, and we'll look under the hood and we'll kick those tires. We'll come up with a make rent ready list. And we will also procure bids and estimates for you from contractors that are insured, licensed, and bonded. And then we will go into a rental analysis. And like I mentioned, a rental analysis is the only way with which to determine the appropriate price that your property will rent for. We don't ask neighbors how much they're getting for their property. We don't hop onto Zillow and look at their Zestimate for rental prices. What we do is a thorough and comprehensive analysis of properties in very close proximity to yours with the exact same bed, bath, square footage, and similar year built. And based off that, we're able to see what properties went that fits those criteria in the last 6 months as unfurnished leases on 12-month terms. And that's how we're going to determine the price that your property is going to rent for. And that report is also going to set expectations for how long to expect your property to remain vacant. So you will have a very clear idea based off data and facts. And after we've gone through the make rent ready and the rental analysis, we'll give you a property management agreement, and I'll go over that next. And after that is signed, we'll go ahead and start the landlord onboarding process. And at that point, we will put your property into our system and create a portal for you to log on, access statements, and all the other things that you can access through our software. And during that time, the make rent ready repairs are in the process of getting made so that we can ultimately move to the next step, which is assigning a dedicated leasing agent. Scott's going to talk about how wonderful our leasing agents are, but we hire some of the best. They're all college educated, and we have a multilingual staff, and we assign someone who knows your area. We assign someone who is familiar with the schools. We assign someone who knows the demographics. And their sole job is fielding showings and qualifying candidates to procure applications. So they will photograph your property professionally and list it on all the major websites. And then we will begin procuring prospective applicants, and we will hold private showings. But before we hold those private showings, we're going to make sure that those tenants can afford your place, and we're going to make sure that they can move within the next 30 days because, again, we're investment-minded managers, and we're always focused on minimizing your vacancy days. So we will hold private showings to people who can move and who can afford it. And as we get applications, we begin the screening and background checks. And we do that more thoughtfully, more thoroughly than other property management providers, in my opinion. The bulk of people out there these days, they sign up for what's called the Beacon Experience Service, and it's basically an automated system. It's an automated system that gives you a snapshot of criminal activity and credit score. And in our opinion, this investment needs more care and more thoughtfulness before we let anyone move in there. So we do a criminal background check. We also do a credit check. We also do an income verification, and we make sure that your prospective applicant makes at least 2.5 times the rental amount. The next two things we do are very important, and we do those manually. We contact their current employer. We get in touch with their HR department. We make sure they're in good standing. Right now with COVID and questionable employment situations, you best believe we make sure your tenant is secure in that department. And then the next thing we do, which you'd be surprised what you can learn from this, and I'm shocked that more property managers don't actually do it. We spend the legwork to get in contact with that last landlord that this tenant had, and we ask them a few questions. We find out if there are any neighbor complaints. We found out what kind of maintenance issues were reported. We find out if they were ever late on their rent. And then we ask the most simple question of all, would you rent to them again? And you can learn considerable information off that. But as we work through that screening process, we will approve applicants. And every Tuesday, your dedicated leasing agent will send you a report with a snapshot of each approved applicant. It will include a snapshot of metrics and also qualitative factors that they've gleaned from their time during that personal tour. And based off that, it'll be up to you to decide which of those approved applicants you'd like to extend a lease to. At that point, our owner coordinator would draw up a lease agreement and we would get that lease signed. We would collect an advance rental payment and a security deposit. Then we would assign our maintenance manager to come in and do a very detailed and thoughtful move-in inspection. During that time, he walks the property and takes no less than 100 pictures. Every scuff, every scratch, every hole in the wall, anything that there could be, we catalog and we make sure that the condition is crystallized and cataloged. Then we move your tenant in, and then we begin the ongoing maintenance phase of your tenant's occupancy. They'll have access to the portal where they can submit work orders as they come in, which we'll handle as they flow, and we'll also collect rent payments and enforce the lease. During the tenancy, we will typically recommend that an owner request a well-occupied property inspection. And we do this for the sole purpose of preparing for the end of this term. I had a coach in high school who would always preach the 5 Ps. Prior performance prevents poor performance. Having said that, we want to understand the condition of your property that it's in. So if by chance your tenant decides not to renew, we have all the information necessary to plan a seamless turnover, to get bids for any make-ready repairs that need to get done, and to execute a plan to decrease your vacancy. And at that point, we come to the end of a lease term, and we send our maintenance manager back out, and the maintenance manager goes ahead and does another inspection. At this time, we are going to reconcile the condition of the property with the move-in and valuation, and we will have 21 days to return the security deposit to your tenant and then start the process all over again. So that's a quick snapshot of a typical life cycle of property management, and all the different steps in that. Now I'm going to go over a typical property management contract. We use the state of California's CAR form. We put it on our letterhead, and then we add our fees in bold print. The first thing you are going to notice on every property management agreement is there is a start date and there is an end date. Next, you will notice a repair and maintenance section. Any property management company that manages many doors has software and systems in place to manage these properties efficiently. We cannot contact an owner every single time something comes through. So we set that amount at $400. And if, let's say, a leak comes in the middle of the night and it's an emergency system and we need to get a plumber out there, we will do so long as that's under $400. If it goes over that amount, at that point, we will procure multiple bids and we will contact you as to decide the best course of action to go. And if the prices that we procured aren't good, we will find more. But the point is, we make decisions with your investment in mind, and the bottom line is always in our mind in that regard. That brings us to the security deposits. We collect security deposits from your tenants, and those security deposits are held in our trust account. A trust account cannot be commingled with any other funds, and that is where the security deposit is held. That is also where we hold reserves. Reserves is the next thing that we ask owners to contribute, and that's in the trust account in the amount of $500. We use reserves in the case of emergency, or say during vacancy, to cover to cover utilities or whatnot. The next section we'll come to is owner distribution and owner statements. Every single month, we collect your rent proceeds and we prepare a statement where we detail the revenue that we collected, the expenses that we had to pay, and the net proceeds that are delivered to you. You will receive those every month, and you will receive a statement prepared by our full service accounting staff, which details all that for you. And if there is ever a situation where we do have to cover a maintenance or something like that, the invoice that we cover will also be uploaded to your owner portal, and you will be able to see everything with complete transparency on the vendor's letterhead without any issues. The next standard thing every property management contract is going to cover is tax withholding. The IRS needs their piece, and if an owner is not a California resident, we are required to hold 7% for California. Or if an owner is a non-resident alien, a foreign entity, or other non-US person, the federal government requires us to hold 30% of the gross rental receipts. In either of these situations, we do have the appropriate paperwork to work for you and to remain IRS compliant. So that is very important, which brings us to the next section, how we get paid. Every property manager is going to have a compensation section, and the most standard compensation fee that you'll see is a management fee, and that's a percentage of the monthly rent that is collected, and our fee is 7%. Typically, it ranges on average from 7 to 10%, depending on your market. The next common fee that every property management contract is going to have is your renting or leasing fee. And you are going to want to pay a renting and leasing fee because you want to incentivize your leasing agent to decrease your days on market and to get your property leased. And another really cool thing that Marshall Reddick does that other property managers do not do is we guarantee that tenant for your first year. The cost of leasing is a fee. We don't want you to pay more than you have to. So we don't charge for renewals. And like I said, if your tenant breaks that lease for any reason in that first year, we'll go ahead and replace them for you. That's our Marshall Reddick rent guarantee. The next line item is evictions. God forbid a property goes into eviction. That's why I focus so much on our screening. We are so great at that, and our eviction rate is below 1%. And the way we stand at that is by having an eviction fee of 0. We will not charge any fees to coordinate your eviction should a tenancy head in that direction. We will simply just assess the court and attorney fees, which for the state of California is typically just $700 to $900. The next compensation feature would be the project management fee. As I mentioned, most properties need a little bit of work to make them rent ready. We've found from our experience that most of these projects can be completed for less than $5,000. We're investment-minded managers, and we want to keep your costs low. We're not trying to make money off coordinating your repairs, so we'll coordinate those make rent-ready repairs or any other repairs for free up to $5,000. You won't find another property manager that'll do that. Some property managers begin charging a fee of up to 10% at $1,500. We assess 5% after 5,000. So there is a clear benefit in having Marshall Reddick coordinate your projects. The next one that I talked on in the last slide is during occupancy property evaluations. We will do that at the owner's reasonable request. We'll do it for $100. And that will allow us to get a condition snapshot of your property and prepare for an oncoming turnover. The next section is early termination. Every property management contract also has to have this. And what this basically says is If we drop the ball, we will let you out of this contract. But if we've held up our end of the agreement and for some reason you want out, there will be a small fee for that. And then moving on to the next section, which is other fees. Every so often, God forbid, a tenant is late on rent. And that requires some effort to collect those funds. And we do charge the state of California's highest fee, which is 6%. And when we collect that, we do split it between us and the owner. So that is split 50-50. Following that, I will turn it back over to Scott, and Scott will talk about the qualities to look for in a property manager, how to spot good ones, how to spot bad ones, things to look for, and things to run for the hills for. So without further ado, Scotty, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Jeremiah. Great job. So yeah, let's keep it going here. So you know, something that's extremely important for everybody. I hope everybody's paying attention to this. The top right triangle, I guess you could say upper right triangle that says, is there a maintenance conflict of interest? This is a point that I really want to emphasize to everybody on this presentation. Most property managers, I'm going to say, you know, the majority, at least that I've come in contact with over the years, have some kind of conflict of interest when it comes to maintenance and repairs. Where do I see that? I usually typically see that with a company that charges unusually low management fees, or, you know, a standalone property management company that doesn't sell real estate and only does property management. So what do I mean by that? Well, there are a lot of companies that have in-house contracting, in-house handyman that are on their payroll, or that the property management company is also a general contractor, and they may have like an in-house contracting and repairs company. And you really, really, really need to watch out for that. And personally, I think you should stay away from it. And here's why. The only type of relationship that works between an investor, a landlord, and a property manager is when the property manager only makes money when the landlord makes money and doesn't make money when the landlord loses money. And you'd be surprised at how often you know, property management companies are making money, are profiting from the maintenance and repairs. Where you don't see that are companies like Marshall Reddick, typically that have an agency where they broker real estate and do property management. Why do we do property management? There's actually a reason we do property management, and it's twofold. One is to have much more control and predictability over our clients' investments. If we're not the ones managing it, then we really can't provide predictions like days on market, or how much the property will rent for, or how much, you know, maintenance and vacancy the property will experience. So the one main reason that we do property management is to provide control over our clients' properties and assets so that we can give them that predictability. And the second reason is to keep that relationship going long-term, year after year after year, to be able to help that, you know, landlord acquire more properties or sell and liquidate properties that they have. If we're managing the asset, and our landlord is looking at, you know, buying or selling property, then we've got a much better understanding of, you know, the types of properties that they're interested, the types of properties that they're looking for. And when it comes time to sell, we're already extremely familiar with all the details of the property. So, you know, real estate sales and property management do go hand in hand very well. And I'm going to recommend to everybody on this presentation that, you know, no matter who you work with, just work with a company that does real estate sales and property management. You have a tremendous amount of more accountability when the company that is recommending properties to you is also the company that is managing it. Provides a lot more accountability versus working with a realtor to acquire a property and then hiring a separate, unrelated management company with you know, no synergy, you know, no relationship whatsoever. You're kind of splitting it up, and you know, you'll see things are a lot more seamless, you know, and it's just easier. You have less points of contact. So anyways, when it comes to property management, make sure that the company you're working with is not making money or profiting off maintenance and repairs. And like Jeremiah said, when it comes to maintenance repairs, we have a full vendor resource team of third-party independent contractors. These are handyman, plumbers, electricians, roofers, painters, anything, pool vendors, anything that the property needs. we have professionals in every category in all geographic locations. Now, these are recommended vendors. That means that we're not forcing our clients to have to go with the painter that we use or have to go with the electrician that we use. So we keep it open-ended. You know, we offer the vendors that we work with because we do work with them constantly on a reoccurring basis. We have a track record with them. They're reliable, they're cost-effective, but ultimately we're not actually making any money off of the maintenance and repairs, and we're recommending these contractors that we have a track record with. Down to the right, so clockwise, bottom right corner, cost versus service. You really need to ask yourself that question. And the reason is because there are many property managers that you do not want to have manage your property for free. I'll say that again. There are a lot of property managers you do not want to work with for free. There's a lot of realtors you don't want to have manage your properties for free. And at the same time, trying to manage your property on your own without paying a small percentage can cost you a lot more money than you know, the negligible fees of having a property manager. So the goal in owning rental properties is not just how to make money. It's really twofold. It's also how not to lose thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I see this happen all the time. Jeremiah and I were just talking about a new potential landlord who's got a property that is on the market and has been on the market now for 90 days. This is a property in Los Angeles that rents for about $5,500 a month. Could be priced a little too high, but I think that there's other reasons why this property's been sitting on the market for 90 days. But if you add that up, 5,500 times 3, right? You get a number that's about close to almost $18,000 that this landlord has lost by trying to cut corners, you know, not having a company that has professional photography, not having an aggressive leasing agent. So it's not just, you know, how do I make an extra dollar? It's how do I prevent myself from losing thousands of dollars, right? Because that's very possible if you don't do this correctly. So you have to ask yourself, not just how do I find the cheapest property manager, but how do I find the most cost-effective manager where I'm getting the most value out of the money that I'm spending? How am I finding a manager that will keep my vacancy low, that will place the right tenants that stay for many years, place tenants that take good care of my properties? How do I find a property manager that you know, looks for preventative maintenance so that I don't run into you know, emergency large dollar amount repairs? That's what you need to be thinking. Also responsiveness. So your property manager better be responsive, right? Especially when it comes time to the vacancy period of, you know, trying to get your property leased, or if there is an ongoing maintenance issue, or if you have questions about your distribution and your statement. You don't want to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 days, you know, to get an answer. So responsiveness is key, and that's something that Marshall Reddick prides ourselves on tremendously. Online reviews, you should absolutely look on Yelp, on Google, on Zillow. Look at the reviews that other landlords and sometimes even tenants are saying about this company. And, you know, when you look at a tenant review, you always have to take that with a grain of salt. Tenants are not always going to agree with the lease that we have to enforce that they signed. They don't always look at the lease either. But if you're looking at tenant reviews, you know, look at the response from the property manager. You know, did the property manager respond to that review? How did they respond? That'll give you a really good idea of how the company handles their operations. And then Jeremiah already went over it's actually an early termination policy, which means that it only comes into play in the first 12 months of the agreement. After the first 12 months, it's canceled, you know, with a 30-day written notice. I can maybe think of 1 or 2 cases where we've seen that happen over hundreds and hundreds of properties that we manage, which happy to discuss, you know, offline. But basically, this is something that we've really almost never even had happen because, you know, our communication is so strong. The expectations that we set are realistic, and we feel that we exceed them in every case. So just a couple of things to keep in mind when you're looking for a good property manager. Our website has a wealth of information on it. You can see the fees that we charge in each of our markets. You can see the services that are provided. So there's a lot more detail on the property management section of our website. Our website is marshallreddick.com. You can click on services at the top and then click on property management. to see the full breakdown of our fee structure, which Jeremiah kind of covered already, but you can see available properties that we have on the market right now on our website. You can see all the services that are provided. So I encourage you to look on our website to get more detail there. So now I want to cover the demographics of renters in different property classes. If you're not familiar with property classes, then you can actually download our free ebook on our website. It's called the Reddick Property Rating ebook. Talks about luxury, A class, B class, C, and D class properties. The book really is to help you figure out and evaluate what types of property classes make sense for you and why. You can see at the bottom there that we've just did basically a very simple definition that A class properties will see more appreciation over time. B class properties will have a somewhat even combination of both, and then C class properties tend to experience more cash flow and less appreciation. So it is kind of a sliding scale. The ebook will help you determine any property that you're looking at, what that property class is. But the main point I wanted to make on this slide is really what's at the top there, is a difference in demographics between different property classes. So Marshall Reddick does not necessarily recommend luxury class or D class properties for investment. If you already own properties that fit in that category as rentals, we will evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. But if you're looking at acquiring more properties, we only really recommend A, B, and C class properties. Again, the ebook goes into a lot more detail, but we see a lot of difference between tenant demographics in each property class. Now, remember, a rental property is a long-term investment. The average investor owns their rental property for between about 10 to 15 years. So in a 10 to 15 year period, you might have a whole handful of different renters, moving in and out. You could have 5 and 8 and 10. It's hard to say exactly, but with a minimum 12-month lease, we look for families, long-term renters that will stay in the property as long as possible. But you will see a trend in different property classes. So what I want to focus on here is A-class properties. Now, A-class properties are at a higher price range than the median home price. Typically, we see renters that are more often in a white-collar working profession, usually have a little bit longer job history, maybe a little bit more job stability. In some cases, we might see higher levels of education. What we also see in A-class properties are much more common to see a tenant who's owned a property in the past or plans on owning property in the future. B-class renters are typically like median income earners for the respective city that they live in. These could be young adults, mid-level managers, basically people who are in that kind of median income bracket. And then C-class are typically blue-collar, hourly wage employees, not as much job stability. And then we don't typically see renters that have owned property in the past or plan on buying property in the future in the C-class category. So what does this all really mean? When you really look at this over a long-term period where you have different tenants moving in and out, what we typically see in A-class properties are tenants who move around less. They have longer job stability. They tend to stay in the property longer and not having to move around for work or employment. So we do typically see lower vacancy in higher property classes. The other thing we see, because we often have tenants that have owned property in the past or plan on buying property in the future with A-class properties, are tenants who have a better understanding of taking care of the property and preventing maintenance from occurring. This means that we see tenants who, change AC filters more often. We see tenants who tend to take better care of maybe the lawn or gardening. We see tenants who, are more familiar with how plumbing works and don't flush things down the toilet that shouldn't be flushed, or tenants who have hair catchers in their shower drain so that not a lot of hair is going down the toilet. So it's just more common for us, and we've evaluated this through our software. We've looked at the data, and we do definitely see a lower amount of maintenance and vacancy in higher property classes. So I thought I wanted to share that with you guys. How do you attract a quality tenant? So I do have a quote there at the top that your tenant will look like your property. And I don't mean physically, I mean more on paper, right? A property that is in a high crime rate where, there's no curb appeal to the property. Maybe the property is significantly outdated. Maybe it's not clean. The pictures don't look good. You're really limiting yourself to like the lowest end of the rental market possible. This is an expression that I didn't coin. This has been around for many, many, many different years. You can take a property, and it might not even have to be in the nicest area of town, but you can do certain things with the gardening in the front, and you can do certain things with the outside, painting and windows and the interior and cleaning and pricing it correctly. That will attract a much better quality renter. So if you're trying to cut corners and the paint in your property is 10 years old and you've already done touch-ups 4 or 5 times, and then those good renters, the ones who do have good credit, who do have good income, who plan on staying for a very long time, they're going to be deterred from your property. They're going to look for properties that fit their style of living. So condition is very important. Property class, which I just mentioned, can kind of vary, or that can impact the type of renter you have as well too. The ad is a huge part of it. So the ad, and what I mean by that is the photography, the description and all the details, and then the price. Those 3 things will have a significant impact on days on market, on how many inquiries come in, on how many showings we get, on how many applications we have. So we do professional photography on every property that we have under management. But before the photography, like Jeremiah mentioned, we're going to give feedback on things that are going to not only reduce the landlord's liability, but attract a good quality renter, and then pricing it correctly, right? Good quality renters are smart. They might look at dozens and dozens and dozens of properties, and they might be looking at properties in your same street, very close to you. So if your property is not priced correctly, they're going to go to properties that are. And you don't want to be the one that every renter is passing over and saying, well, this looks nice, but it's a little overpriced. Oh, here's a property very close to it, same bed, bath, and square footage that's priced for $100 less. I'll go for that one. You have to know the competition, and we make all of our landlords well aware of the competition in their area so they understand why we're recommending a certain price. And then lastly, the screening process. Bar none, that's going to be the final determining factor of placing a good quality renter. I'm going to go through, and Jeremiah touched on it, but I will go through a little bit more detail on our screening process and how we place good quality long-term renters. Well, this is an example that I see all too often from people who are trying to do it on their own, or hiring a real estate agent to lease their properties, or like I said, just not hiring the right property manager. You should never have a 90-day vacancy. That just shouldn't happen. We lease, I think, about 50 properties or more a month now. It's kind of where we're at. So that's a lot. I mean, that's obviously, more than one every single day. So how often do we see one of our properties go more than 90 days? Less than 1% of the time. I can only think of maybe one time this year that happened. Now, when we're leasing 50 properties a month, how are we doing that, right? So the very first thing, like Jeremiah mentioned, is that we're going to visit the property, we're going to walk it, we're going to give you our feedback, and then we're going to provide you with a professional rental analysis. So we're not just saying, we think the property rents for $1,500 and that's probably what it'll rent for. No, we provide you with current active comparable properties that are on the market right now within a mile or less of your property, very similar square footage, bed and bath. And we're also going to share with you properties that have rented in the past. We have that data because we're realtors and we have access to the multiple listing service. But Zillow and Realtor.com and Trulia, they don't have that data. So we're going to provide you with, I guess you could say, proprietary information on properties that have rented recently in your area to give you not an emotional opinion, but factual data on how much your property is going to rent for and the average days on market in the area, which we beat every single time. So we're also going to give you feedback on the exterior of the property, the interior of the property. But how would a property sit vacant for so long? It could be any one of these, or it could be a combination, right? I see ads all the time that have poor quality photos that are taken on a phone, photos that are taken in the dark, photos that only show, a limited amount of the property. Well, that could very easily let a property that should be leasing quickly sit on the market for much longer. Maybe there's a communication breakdown, right? Maybe if a landlord is trying to do this on their own and they're at work and they're missing phone calls and emails from prospective renters, well, they're going to move on to something else, right? If you're working with a realtor who's focused on selling real estate, where leases are probably going to be the lowest importance on their totem pole, I could very easily see a communication breakdown if you're having a realtor try to lease your property who's trying to go to listing presentations and buyer tours, chasing after the big commissions. Leases for most realtors are bottom of the barrel. So that's another reason why you should be working with a property management company that prioritizes leases. And of course, then who's managing the property? What are their priorities? Is it a professional property management company, or am I using my friend or family member to try to rent my property? Okay, so this is a screenshot of the top of our lease agreement. Like Jeremiah said, we're very, very thorough and extensive on the screening and background checks. We charge the highest amount for applications. Why? Because we do the most extensive amount of work. We want to make sure that everybody who applies is serious. So everybody 18 and over has to fill out an application. They have to provide their last 30 days pay stubs and photo IDs. And we're looking for a minimum of 2.5 times the monthly rent and gross household income. I'll say that only applies to our California office. Our Texas, Tennessee, and Florida offices actually have a 3 times the monthly rent income requirement. So we're looking at every working adult's pay stubs. If they're self-employed, we're looking at their last year's tax returns or P&L statements. And then we actually call their employers. We verify employment. This is what a mortgage lender does when somebody's trying to qualify for a loan of hundreds of thousands of dollars. We do the same thing. We take, our screening process very seriously. So we'll look at the pay stub, we'll call the employer, verify employment. We'll make sure everything on the application matches, that they've been working there for the duration of time that they told us they do, that they're in good standing with their employment. Some more application guidelines. We want to see rental history. We want to know where they're currently living, how long they've been living there, how much they're paying in rent, and they have to provide us with the name and phone number of their property manager. We're also going to take that on the previous rental history. And, if we're getting, if we're getting incomplete information, if we're seeing long periods of gaps in between rental history, we're going to ask them questions. And we definitely do ask a lot of questions. Why did you move from this state to that state? We're going to make sure everything matches up, and we cannot qualify a renter unless we talk to their current and previous landlord or property manager. Credit scores down to the bottom. We do require a minimum 600 FICO score. That's kind of just right off the bat. However, we do look at anything in collections. We would disqualify anybody that has a recent bankruptcy, anybody that's had an eviction, anybody with judgments or large collection items are going to be disqualified. Now, this is actually a screenshot. I took a couple pieces off of our California lease agreement. And, we're always happy to share our lease agreement with redacted personal info, either in California, Texas, Tennessee, Florida. We can share a copy of our lease without, of course, tenant contact info. But a couple things that I wanted to share with you in the top, section 6, we charge the highest late fee that each state allows us to. We're very serious about tenants paying on time, and we let them know that. Because each tenant has a portal on our website, they're paying rent electronically. And we actually charge them if they try to pay by check. We do not accept personal check. We can accept a money order or a cashier's check. However, there is a $20 fee to pay by check, which they don't have if they pay online. And we want our tenants to do that. So we have about 98% or so of our renters that pay online through the portal. What's wonderful about that is that on the date that rent is considered late, there's an auto charge for the late fee. So if they log on their system on the day that rent is considered late, they'll see that late fee is automatically assessed. And then we see in the middle here, section 46, that we have an early termination fee that is standard that we implement on all of our lease agreements, basically saying, tenant, we'll let you out of your lease if you pay a fee of 1 month, just a 1 month fee, and then you have to pay continued rent until we place the new renter. We don't see this happen very often, but we make sure that if a tenant ever is in a situation where they have to leave and break the lease, they understand right up front that there is a fee associated with that. And we make sure that the landlord does not incur any loss of income from a tenant breaking their lease. So we also require renter's insurance. This is the section at the bottom. Every renter has to provide us with a copy of their renter's insurance. and they have to name us on their policy as well too. I don't expect you guys to read all this right now. However, this is an addendum on our lease, standard on every lease agreement. This is not something that you're going to have if you draft up a lease on your own. It's also not something that you're probably going to have if you use a realtor to lease your property. These are fees for pretty much anything you can think of. If a tenant schedules a maintenance request, and if they've requested them, to give access to our vendor, and if they're not there when the vendor shows, we have a fee for that. We have a fee if they cancel a maintenance request at the last minute as well too. If we ever have to post a 3-day notice on the door, we charge the tenant for the time and effort of us having to do that. As I said, we also have a $20 processing fee for checks. We have an NSF or insufficient funds fee if their payments ever bounce. This is just one section of our lease agreement. Our lease agreement is extremely thorough, and there's a lot of detail in there that we put in there. And of course, we've checked with our attorneys and fair housing laws to make sure everything is above board. But I just wanted to show you just one little reason why it pays to work with a professional property manager who knows how to draft the lease agreement. We're in interesting times right now. So how is Marshall Reddick handling the coronavirus situation, and how is it affecting? Interestingly enough, it's had nothing but a very positive impact on our property management, on our leases, on our showings, on our days on market. It's interestingly enough had only a positive impact. Why? We could speculate a lot of different reasons, but essentially we're seeing more rental demand. That could mean that potential buyers are looking at, continuing to rent properties. That could mean that people are not interested in looking at 20 or 30 different properties before making a decision, and maybe they're a little bit more decisive. That could mean that maybe we are just standing out among the competition right now because of all of our practices. But essentially, we are seeing a lot more rental demand. We're seeing more applications on our leases. We're seeing less days on market. So how do we handle leases? Well, long before the coronavirus, we've already had a practice in place where we phone screen each individual looking to see the property. So we ask them questions on the phone like, what's your current living situation? When are you looking to move? How many people would be living in the property? Do you have any pets? Why are you looking to rent this property? What do you do for work? What's your credit like? So we go through about 15 questions. Our leasing agents go through about 15 questions on the phone before even conducting the showing. We have each individual fill out what's called, in California, it's the PED form. This stands for Property Entry Advisory and Declaration. It's basically a new form that's been implemented since the coronavirus that protects the leasing agent and protects the landlord, and gives that kind of advisory on PPP and CDC guidelines for how we handle the showing. So we make each individual fill that out, and they have to obviously disclose to us if they're feeling sick, and they have to wear masks. We practice social distancing, and for individuals that are just not comfortable looking at a property in person, we do virtual tours for all of our rental properties as well too. Now, Jeremiah touched on this, but the applicants that are applying for our properties right now in any of our markets, we're seeing a lot of them with essential employment. We're seeing people who have either businesses that have not been affected, or people in government, in healthcare, in manufacturing, in a lot of different industries that would be considered essential. So that's very positive, of course, for the landlord and for us, because we are able to see their income this year. We're able to see if their income has been affected, and we are pretty careful about the people that we choose and how solid their income is. And on the other end, for all the tenants that are in our properties currently, we've seen the lowest amount of move-outs that I think we've seen, since we started. More and more tenants are renewing their leases. I guess, not a lot of people are wanting to move out of their property, but it is interesting that we're seeing more rental demand for the properties that we do currently have. I wanted to share with you guys some examples. By the way, I know we're at an hour. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes left, so I wanted to cover some really important things here before we end. So this is a property that we just leased a few days ago, this past week. You can see at the bottom right, we listed it on July 6th, and we took the listing down on July 11th. So we had about 5 days on market. This is in Long Beach, California. So this is part of our Los Angeles portfolio. And it's 4-bed, 2-bath, about 2,000 square feet. I have a picture that we took of the outside. Zillow, for some reason, doesn't have the interior photos on there since we took it down. But what you can see on here is, first of all, that cell phone number. The phone number goes directly to our leasing agent. Our leasing agents only lease properties, and they work full-time for Marshall Reddick. They don't have other part-time jobs. They don't work for other companies. They are full-time leasing properties for us, and we have a handful of leasing agents in each one of our markets. The other thing is, you can see it says 25 reviews, where that phone number is again on the left-hand side. Anybody that's interested in leasing a property from Marshall Reddick can click on that, and they can see what people are saying about our management. This gives an added level of assurance and comfort for a potential renter. They're not going to get that if you're trying to rent your property on your own. You as a landlord don't have any, you obviously don't have any online credibility. You don't have any, online presence, and there's no, the tenant's just going to have to trust that you're a good landlord, right? However, with Marshall Reddick Property Management, they can actually see reviews that have been posted by other landlords and tenants in the past. So let me share with you what happened here with this property. Obviously, it rented pretty quickly. You can see it was on the market for 5 days, 15 applications received in 6 days. That's a lot. I'm not going to say that we get 15 applications on every single property. However, this isn't that uncommon for us either. And there's a lot of reasons that I've already touched on how we're getting so many applications, because we are doing professional photography. We are pricing it correctly. We are answering our phone and email for every prospective renter. We are doing showings when that renter is available, right? Because all we do is lease properties. We're not full-time, working for another company like a landlord may be doing and saying, well, I can show it to you on Saturday, right? Because a landlord might have a day job. Well, no, we can show it to them whenever they're available. So for people, especially that are looking to move or trying to make a decision quickly, we do grab a lot of people because we are available. Let me share with you another property. Now, this goes back to April. This is a property in our Orange County office in Huntington Beach. Nice property, corner lot, kind of a starter home, single level, 3-bed, 2-bath. Not a big home, but great for, maybe a small family. And you can see there that it was listed for rent on April 23rd and then removed on April 28th. So again, about five days or so on market. And that resulted in 14 applications. So, even in April, when we were in some very, very uncertain times in April, right? I'm not saying that we're in the most certain now, but I would say that times were very, very uncertain in March and April, where we still experienced results like what you're seeing here in front of you. Not an anomaly, not, 1 in a million case. Do we get 15 applications on every property? No. But do we get multiple applications when we price it correctly and do professional photography? Do we see quick turnaround? Absolutely. So what sets us apart? Jeremiah mentioned that we have a multilingual staff. We're living in a global economy. Every market that we're in, we cater to people in a lot of different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, and languages. So we have multiple staff members that speak Chinese, multiple staff members that speak Spanish. We even have a couple staff members that speak other languages as well too, besides English. So we do cater to a global economy. You're not really going to see that with your small mom and pop property managers, right? We manage over 1,000 units, as I mentioned. We have the majority of our staff is college educated. We have some and many staff members who have graduate degrees. So we pay our staff members very well. We do. We pay what I would consider to be higher than the average salary in any market that we're in. That allows us to retain a good staff. That allows us to attract high quality employees. And that level of education is important to us. Marshall Reddick was a college professor in Los Angeles for 30 years. A lot of our staff members, did go through higher levels of education, which is important to us. And like I mentioned already, a lot of our staff members own rental property. Our agents own rental properties, our leasing agents, our realtors, And many of our W-2 staff members own rental property as well too. How can you save money hiring a professional property manager? Let's talk about that for a minute, because I really do think it's more important to look at how to save money hiring a good manager rather than than trying to maybe spend a dollar or two less on fees. How do you prevent losing thousands and thousands of dollars? So a good property manager like Marshall Reddick will help you reduce your vacancy in a whole number of ways. I don't just mean doing the correct advertising and pricing and placing a good tenant, but we look at how the tenant demographic would be considered short-term or long-term. So we're looking for tenants that maybe are families or who are looking for a place to live to grow a family. Maybe they're looking to move to a place because of the school districts or proximity to their work. So we take all that into account. We don't want a tenant who's going to move in, and stay for a year, and then we place another tenant, they stay for a year, and then another tenant. Like Jeremiah said, we want this to run smoothly. We want tenants who stay for many years, and we don't charge a releasing or a renewal fee. So you're only going to be paying that one upfront leasing fee with us for the duration of time that tenant stays in a property. A good property manager is going to limit and reduce your liability. When we go to the property, we're going to tell you if the smoke alarms or CO2 monitors are outdated or missing. We're going to tell you if there's tripping hazards. We're going to tell you if we feel that there are things that need to be adjusted to reduce your liability, right? And we're going to discuss and talk about the HVAC systems and the condition of the roof to make sure that there's not a catastrophe that not only costs you money, but also creates added liability. A good property manager is going to lower your expenses for repairs and prevent emergencies. So when we walk a property, we're going to look for things that we would consider to be preventative maintenance. We're going to look at things that might be dilapidated or falling apart and tell you up front that it's better to take care of it now than to wait for this to break when a tenant is here. And we're going to give you all that feedback from standpoint of liability as well too. Good property manager is going to place long-term tenants that reduces tenant turnover. A good property manager is going to place good quality tenants that don't just stay longer, but take better care of your property. And then lastly, what does this all amount to? Well, this amounts to less stress, less headache, less worry, and less time away from your work and leisure. When you have a good property manager that does everything correctly, like we're explaining, and communicates to you on an as-needed basis and is available when you need them, that allows you to focus on the things that matter most to you. And that's how hiring a property manager can help you make money and prevent you from losing money. So Jeremiah actually touched on our California management agreement. Of course, we can provide you a sample copy of our property management agreement in any of our markets. Our simple fee structure is on our website. This is just kind of a flyer reiterating that we split our late fees if we ever collect them. We charge a 50% of 1 month's rent leasing fee up to $2,500. That means if you have a property that rents for more than $5,000, then our leasing fee is capped at $2,500. That leasing fee includes our professional photos, the rental analysis, the advertising, the showings, the screening and background checks, the move-in inspection, and the move-out inspection when the tenant moves out. That's all covered through our leasing fee. We don't charge any additional costs for advertising, showings, or any of the above. And where a lot of companies do charge nickel and dime fees, Marshall Reddick does not. We also reduce our monthly management fee based on the number of units for a particular building. So if you have an 8-unit apartment building, that fee would be 6%, and then you can see it goes down with each larger building of units. We also don't charge our management fees during vacancy, and that's a very important point to note, is that we're not making any money during a vacancy. We don't charge any fees while the property is vacant. Okay, with a couple minutes left, I wanted to share with you, these are screenshots of all of our markets except Florida. I wasn't able to get a good screenshot on there and fit it either, but this is Los Angeles, Orange County, Clarksville, Tennessee on the top right, and then Austin and San Antonio on the bottom right. So pretty good coverage. We cover all of LA County, as far out as Thousand Oaks, as far east as Upland, and all the way down to Long Beach. Orange County, same thing. We cover the entire Orange County down to the south, up to Brea, Yorba Linda, and even some in the Inland Empire. So if you own property in San Bernardino County, let us know. We might be able to help you with that as well. Same thing with our other markets. If you have properties that are just on the outskirts, it's possible that we might still be able to help. But wanted to share with you that pretty much if you've got property in any of these areas, we've got you covered, and we manage properties there as well too. These are our office addresses. You can find our locations on our website, marshreddick.com/offices. These are the office addresses of each of our brick and mortar offices for Marshall Reddick. Our main phone lines to the right. And this is just where Marshall Reddick has an office. Like I said, there are a few office locations that we have third-party property managers and realtors that we can refer you to. But in each of these locations, this is where we have our office. What are customers saying about us? You can certainly find out. I think there's probably between 400 and 500 reviews online between Zillow, Google, and Yelp. You can go on Yelp, type Marshall Reddick Real Estate. You can go on our Google page in each location. You can go on Zillow, look at reviews from landlords. You can also look at reviews from our clients who are buying and selling properties with us as well too. It's very important, no matter who you work with, don't take anybody's word for it. If somebody says, hey, this is a good property manager, here's a referral, you should still look them up online, see what people are saying, and look at recent reviews as well too. We definitely encourage you guys to do that because we have hundreds of 5-star reviews online. We have a separate Zillow page for property management. It's you can see the URL link there at the top. You can also Google Marshall Reddick Zillow property management. This is going to have a little bit more of a background and detail on the exact services we cover. There's also 30 reviews from landlords on our separate Zillow property management page. On our website, marshallreddick.com, there's a lot more education on property management that we provide to you guys for free. So you can see here some of the videos, articles, guides that you can download, again, all for free on our website. Our website Learn page is basically an online university of education. Over 50 topics to choose from. You can see on the left there a lot of different topics. It's cut off at I down there at the bottom, so you can see that there's a lot of topics. If you filter by property management or go directly to that URL link at the top, then you can read a lot more of the educational articles and knowledge that we provide, resources that we have, all at your fingertips. So because we're a little bit over time, what we're going to do, I've seen a lot of you guys typing questions, which we've really appreciated. Jeremiah has been responding to some of you in the chat box. Anybody that we didn't get a chance to respond to yet, we'll get a personal phone call or email from Jeremiah. And we love talking to you on a one-on-one basis, getting to know you a little bit better, answering your questions, answering any concerns you have. For us, this webinar is really just an opportunity to connect with you on a one-on-one basis, having that opportunity. So Jeremiah's contact information is here. Jeremiah, I don't know if you want to pop back on and say anything, but I want to kind of finish here by thanking everybody for joining us. I hope that you were able to take away a lot of knowledge and information from this presentation. Jeremiah is available to talk to each of you on a one-on-one basis about either properties that you own, questions you have, properties that you're looking at acquiring, anything property management related. We're here to help. So Jeremiah, thank you for being on the webinar with us today. And folks, attendees, thank you so much for joining. Jeremiah, any final words?
Each and every one of you personally.
Okay, great. I think you got caught up there at the end. I heard that
goodness.
You're going to reach out to everybody.
I was just saying, I was saying thank you so much for everyone who attended and spent this time with us. And I'm looking forward to contacting each and every single one of you in the next day or two and having these conversations. So look forward to that. I certainly will.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Awesome job. And folks, thank you again so much for joining us today. We look forward to talking to you more and helping you grow your property management portfolio. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.